In this video, we're going to see if we can't get this old girl up here back to fully operational. So sit back and I'll tell you what we're going to get into. All right, we're back to work on our case DI. If you liked my previous video, which I'll put a link to here, I brought this thing back to life after it was sitting in a barn for at least 30 years. We got her up and running again, took her out, did a little bit of work, but we discovered the clutch was slipping real bad. I tried to adjust the clutch, but it was no use. The clutch facings must be just too worn. So in order to get to that, we have to split this tractor apart. Some other things that we found that we want to address. Our exhaust system here leaves something to be desired, right? So we've got a homemade pipe there. The manifold is leaking real bad. Let's see, what else? The brakes do not work, so we need to address the brakes too. So the main thing is getting this clutch fixed. So in order to do that, we need to split this bad boy. So the case is right there. That's where we need to split it. So as you can see, got all kinds of stuff in the way here in the shape of this loader here, right? So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But actually, I think the loader may be able to assist us a little bit. So if you look at the way this thing is bolted on here, it's bolted on here and down here on the front. Doesn't appear to be bolted on anywhere else until you get to the back here where it sits on top of the axle, and then there's another collar, brace, whatever that goes underneath there. So it looks like we're attached here and we're attached here. So if I want to split this thing, I obviously need to splitting right here and bring it apart. I think I can leave the loader on all except for right there and actually use the loader. I think I can put a jack under here and on the other side to lift up, unbolt that, lift it up enough so that it clears the axle. Then I think we can unbolt our, bring it back over here, unbolt here, and then slide her apart, right? Those are the main things. Other things, there's a few bits of wiring we need to undo. Probably this, my choke cable, my fuel line, some linkage on the other side, things like that. From reading the manual, it sounds like I only need to be able to slide it apart 9 inches in order to get that clutch assembly out of there. So I'm going to get to work here, seeing what I can do. So first off, I'm going to start taking some linkages and things like that apart, and I'll bring you back. All right, we popped the hood off. We popped off the fuel line, popped off the positive battery cable just so we don't have any accidents here. Now I'm going to pop off this cable here that goes to that half. Other than that, I don't really... Oh, I got to do the choke cable yet too. Yeah. Other than that, that might be the only things I have to do on this side. So, yeah. Let me just get those going and then give her another once over, and I'll talk to you. I'm also partially doing this too, so I remember, when I try to put this thing back together in a month or two down the road, that I remember what I all took apart. So I always review the footage, and it helps me that way. So I recommend you all do the same, either that or take pictures too. That helps. All right, I'll bring you back. All right, choke cable is off. Got my wire off here. I loosened up the cable for the thermostat temperature gauge. So I think we have enough play. Like I said, we only have to be able to roll at 9 inches, so I think there's enough play in there. So let's walk around to the other side, see what we're working with over here. Let's see. I think, yeah, the coil wire right there is gonna have to come off. Maybe the positive. Yeah, well, I pulled the positive off the battery, but it runs to the starter right there, so I think I can fish that through up here, maybe. Otherwise, I'll just pull it off the starter quick. This linkage right here is definitely going to have to come apart, so I just have to take out those cotter pins there and pop those things out. Other than that, let me see what else we got here. There's some other wiring that goes to the... See, he actually had a CB, or a CB, an 8-track on here. from back in the day. That'd be cool to see if that thing still works. So maybe we'll try to keep that wiring intact, but that might all be okay. So let me go ahead and get that linkage popped off and work on that starter, and then we'll see where we're at. So I'll bring you back. All right, guys, I think I have everything unhooked, so we should be in good shape. I don't really see anything else holding me up here. So I'll walk over to the other side here. Putting my jack under the center section here, and I'm gonna test out to see if I can lift up the loader portion of it. Really is what I'm gonna do right now. So I've got my jack under the center section right here. That bolt is loose, and the other one on the other side is loose, or that nut is loose rather. This side I'm gonna have to work a little bit because I tried to crack those loose, and the nut and the bolt are spinning at the same time. So I'm gonna have to put there they are right there. Whoop! I'm gonna have to put a wrench and a socket on there and see if I can't get them to move. So I'm going to try to crack those loose and see where that gets me. So I'll bring you back if when anything interesting happens. So stay tuned. All right, y'all, status update. I got my 4 bolts out on my bracing there for the loader, and I've got a jack under this side, and I started lifting up, and you can see it separating. Go over to the other side. Jack under that side, bolts out, and you can see it separating. So this is gonna work. So I just need to lift these up enough to get them to clear that axle. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'll bring it back once we're up that high. So 1 second. All right, I found another thing I need to detach, the steering. So basically there was a castle nut on here with a cotter pin I pulled off. Took the nut off, and I'm working to slide this off now. It's kind of stuck on there, so I'm hitting it with penetrant and just kind of tapping on there to break up any rust and stuff that's in there to see if I can't break it free. But you can see that arm goes down here, goes all the way up to the front there. So obviously we can't split it with that on there. So I'm going to go ahead and work to get that off, and then I will bring you back once that's off. All right, so that wasn't budging, so I went ahead and I just popped off my arm down here, unscrewed everything from the ends here, pulled out the spring, and then popped that bad boy out. So now that's loose. All right, so now we can actually get to splitting the case, I believe. So first step is going to be, well, I'll show you right, where are we at? Right down there. Removing those bolts on either side, and then case actually uses a splitting pin to help for realignment. So it's basically a 3/4 inch dowel pin that's 13 inches long, 13 and 15/16 I think is the exact measurement, and it has cotter pins on either end. And there's one on that one that goes on this side and one goes on the other side, and that's for when you split this to help realign things. So I don't have that. I tried searching and I couldn't really find any. So what I do have is some threaded rod. I actually took a 3-foot piece and I cut it in half, so I've got 18 inches. So might be too long, but we'll see. I can always cut it down. And I got some nuts to put on either end here to help hold it in place. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that from this side and from the other side and slide those dowel pins in there and see where that gets us. So stay tuned. I'll bring you back once that is done. All right, so here's what those pins actually look like. You see there, we got a 3/4 inch shaft on there, fine thread. And then I've got my splitting pins in place there. They slide in really nice. The 3/4 inch rod I think is gonna work really good. So I've got those in place on both sides. Now it's time to start unbolting the case. So first thing I need to do is get another jack or some sort of support under the rear end, because once I unbolt that, the tractor will be separated and should pull apart, I think, assuming I have everything disconnected as I'm supposed to. So I'm going to get something under that rear end to support it, and I'm going to begin the case separation. So I will get you guys in here when I'm actually separating the case. So I'll bring you back. Well, here we are a couple weeks later. I actually got it to the point where I tried to move it on my own, and I got it to move about this much, but stuff was hanging up and it was just too heavy for me. So fast forward a couple weeks and we're up here at the deer camp, and I got some helpers. So we actually, we've got everything blocked up and on jacks, and we just slid it apart, and it looks like I got enough to get that clutch out of there. So I've got, I believe it's 9 bolts. So I just got to unbolt those right there, and it should slide off the flywheel and drop down. So I'm going to go ahead and get those loosened up, and I'll show you the results. All right, guys, we got her unbolted, and I got our clutch out. You can see that's just a bare flywheel in there. Here's my clutch. So Everything came out pretty easy. I had to pry out on this a little bit to get it to fall out, and then we had to kind of twist the tractor a little bit to get it to open up the bottom enough for this to fall out. But I was able to get it out, and there's the clutch disc itself. Now here's the strange thing. This clutch disc actually does not look that worn. You can see there's still a decent amount of space down to the rivets on there. There's a lot of groove left on there, so I'm not really sure what's going on here. Something seems fishy, right? Also looking in here, I don't know if I can show you at all, but so I was trying to get out the throwout bearing. Come on. And you can see there's like a bushing or something on the front there that's stuck on the shaft. And I don't see that in the parts catalog. So I don't know what that is. Come on, focus. I don't know what that is. So I'm going to try to work to get that off. There you go. You can kind of see a little bit of it. Get that off and see what exactly that is. And then we'll examine it further. But I'm not sure what's going on here. So let me bring you back. Well, I got it. That shaft, that is actually just a shaft that the throwout bearing rides on. So I had to take off this linkage right here and loosen up the linkage on the other side, and the throwout bearing and the carrier fell right out. So now I need to drive the throwout bearing out of this carrier here. So go ahead and do that. I'm gonna just find I don't have my driver set here. I'm not at home. I'm gonna find a big socket, put it on the vise, and just tap it down, and then we'll put the new one back in. So 1 second. Alright, so I couldn't find a socket big enough, but what I did find was an old ball here that's all mauled up. So I basically dropped it down the hole here, put the throwout bearing on the set it on the vise right here, and give her a whack, and she came out in one tap here, right? So now I've got to pay attention to how this thing came apart. So it came apart this way. So this lip goes towards the front or towards the engine on the tractor. The non-lip side goes towards the carrier. So I'm gonna go get my new one, and we'll line it up and pop that back on. All right, new bearing is installed, so now we're going to go ahead and slide this bad boy back in the tractor. So this this hole here goes on the bottom because that's where the oil that gets slung around in there collects and drains out. So put her back on the bottom, slide this in, and make sure you get your there's the forks in there from this shaft. Make sure you get those lined up on there, and then that thing should be good to go. All right, opening weekend of deer hunting is done, and I'm back home now. We got actually 5 deer out of the group, 4 doe and 1 buck. So it was a pretty good weekend. All right, so I took the clutch back home with me, and now we're gonna start trying to dig into this and see what we got going on here for specs. So I'm gonna throw you up on the tripod here, and we're gonna try to measure out our clutch disc thickness here. 1 second. All right, so here's my clutch plate. I've got my caliper. I've got my parts diagram, and so this is the front side, and it's saying the front side disc is supposed to be 5/32 thick, which is 156 thousandths. So we'll go ahead, get our caliper on here, go to 0, and it's going to be kind of tough to measure, so I've got to try to pick and choose my spots here, but there are these little notches in here where I can get a bite on it. So I'm getting, hopefully you can see that here. I'll try to move this down so you can see a little bit better. Getting roughly 126 there. Just keep working around. 116 there. Maybe it's more like 120. Let's see. Can't really get at that one. Can't really get at that one. Check this one. 123. Yep. 128. So it's looking like the front side is worn down. That one's 130, a little bit thicker. Front side is worn down. Looks like about 30 thousandths or so. So I'm not a big clutch guy, so I'm still learning about this stuff, particularly wet clutches. So I'm trying to, I don't know how much wear that actually is, like when the spec is, you know, what's low limit for the specs. Because like I was showing you before, we still do have quite a bit of grooves on the front here, and we're a ways away from the rivets, but that's 30 thousandths wear. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the back side. The back side, we'll re-zero here. Our back side is supposed to be 1/8 inch, so that's 125 thousandths. So I can't really grab that one. Let's just work around here. Here, we can probably get a little bit of bite on this one. That's too much of an angle. Let's see. Here, this one I should be able to get. So that one's saying 148, so that one's pretty thick. Here, up here I can actually, yeah, 145, 146, 145. I can't really bite there. How about right here? 144. So that seems like it's actually thick enough on the back side. So that means that the front side may have been the one that was slipping. I can't really get down on the bottoms here to measure those. I don't really have anything to do that, other than like maybe I could stick a straight edge on there, but the outside is kind of telling a tale there, I think. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at our clutch disc. So, or our pressure plate here. So, fumble. Now I cleaned this up a little better. I was showing you some of the cracks that are in here. Here, I'll take you off the tripod for this. So you can see we do have some glazing going on here, it looks like, or maybe burning or something. I don't really know. But I mean, that's obviously a big stress crack, and you see all these like micro cracks everywhere. They're like all over the place, especially here. Right? Not so much on this side, but yeah, it's starting about right here and going all the way around to like right here. We have those micro cracks in there, so this bad boy's shot. So here's, let's take a look and just see how flat this thing is. I'm still trying to figure out why this thing was slipping, because this thing does look relatively flat. The wear does, it's only on one side of the disc, not the other, so I think it is slipping here on this front side. So let's just take a look here. Yeah, so look at, I've got my straight edge across here, and we've got some, hopefully you can see that, we've got some cupping going on. So it's lower in the middle than it is on the outside, and I mean, that looks like, I don't know, maybe an 1/8 inch, a little bit less than an 1/8 inch, something like that. But that seems to be, go over here, pretty consistent all the way around. So it seems like we're only grabbing on the outsides and not the inside. So what does that look like? Let's see if we can set our clutch disc down here. Yeah, so we probably have some uneven wear here going on that clutch disc. Here, let's see if we can't put our straight edge across here and just see what that looks like. I don't know how much we're going to be able to see, but yeah, so here it's touching on the middle, but not the outsides. So definitely some cupping going on there. Same thing back there, touching the middle, not the outsides. Now, in contrast, let's flip this thing over and see if we can see what the backside looks like. Obviously, I can't measure the inside of the flywheel because it's on the tractor and barely split apart, so I can't really get in there too well. Okay, so this looks flat all the way across, right? Going to the back side, same thing, flat all the way across. Just look at the sides here, you can't see that, but I'm not seeing any gaps there. So I think our problem is on the front side, and it must be having to do with this pressure plate being, it must have got real hot and it cupped, would be my guess based on what I'm seeing here, because this isn't just like, it's not like an impact crack. That looks like a stress crack to me. I actually work for a foundry, so I'm gonna take some pictures of this and bring it into the metallurgist and see what they have to say, what type of a crack they think this type of thing is. But I'm guessing this sucker got really hot, and then it almost seems like it hot tore a little bit or something like that, particularly on this one side of the one half of the clutch basically. So this is gonna have to be replaced. So basically this is in 3 parts, more than 3 parts, but like 3 sections, I guess you could say. So you got the front plate, got your pressure plate, and you've got your disc back there. And here's our parts diagram here, right? So front plate, pressure plate, and then our clutch disc. And this part looks like it needs to be replaced. So I'm gonna get on the horn and try giving some people a call and see if I can't locate one of these. I've heard these are really hard to locate, so we may have an issue here, but we'll see what we can do. So I will bring you back once I figure out what I'm going to do, so stay tuned. All right, here's where we're at, guys. I made a couple phone calls, searched the internet up and down, and I'm having issues finding this thing, right? The guy that I made contact with, he can get most case parts, and he can't get this part. So there's an older version of the foot clutch and a newer version of the foot clutch. He can get the newer version, he can't get the older version. The newer version has a 10 spline input shaft in there, whereas this one has a 6 spline, and the old one is a little bit bigger. It's about 12 inches, this one's 11 3/4 inches. So we got issues. I do have a couple guys that say they have a pressure plate from a Case DC, but they're not sure exactly which model. He sent me pictures. It looks similar to this, and the size is similar, but I'm going to disassemble it to see what the internals look like here, and we're going to try to match mine up to his by taking some measurements. So we'll see, but it's not looking overly promising. It's a used one, too, that has been repaired with a weld, but that's still in better shape than the one I got here. So I've set myself up a little jig. So this is under spring pressure. To loosen this clutch up, I have to loosen up these 3 bolts. But it's going to be easier if I can take the pressure off the middle. So I've set up this jig here where I'm going to basically compress it this way. And then loosen up these bolts that way. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to... Since I'm taking this apart, that's my finger adjustment. You can see this is like an adjustment nut here. Right, so that's the adjustment for my fingers in the middle there. So I'm going to see just where my fingers are in relation to the, whoops, wrong side, to the top plate here, see how far away it is, because it was functioning good the way it was. So I'm going to try to get this set up and try to take a measurement here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but I'm seeing, let's see here, that's basically a 1/4 inch right there. What's this one at? Basically, I don't know, you guys can't see it. I'm trying to look outside the camera. Basically a 1/4 inch. We'll check the other one just for good measure. Come on. Oh, she's tightening up on me here. Oh, I can't get over there. I'll set that one off camera and I'll get that measurement too, but it looks like we're at a 1/4 inch. So you guys remember that because I won't. All right, I'll bring you right back. All right, that third one was about at a 1/4 inch also. Okay, so I've tightened this up so I've got some spring pressure on it, and I think it's lowered down a little bit. Hopefully this piece of aluminum holds here. I don't know if it's going to be strong enough or not, but we'll find out real quick because there's a lot of springs on here and a lot of tension. So I'm going to loosen up these nuts. I'm going to try to do it evenly. Yep, that one's loose. Okay. Yeah, actually, I think I'm in good shape here. They don't feel like... The spring doesn't look like it's, or the plate doesn't look like it's coming up. I'm able to loosen these by my fingers, so I think I'm okay. I'm going to leave these all the way at the top just as a safety valve in case I don't have enough thread sticking out here, which might be the case. So now I'm going to go ahead and try to loosen this bad boy up. Oh, I'm probably going to have to hold it at the bottom. Yeah, I am. All right, hold on. Let me grab a wrench for the bottom and I'll bring it back. All right, got her clamped down below with a vice grip, so let's see what happens as I'm loosening this thing up here. Oh. Something seems like it might be binding. Let me put a little bit more tension on there, just so she doesn't spring up on me, and I'm going to try prying around and see if I can't get her to pop out. 1 second here. All right, so as it turns out, I was close, but no cigar. Basically, I had to loosen up these nuts up here and drive those setters down, and now our clutch is loose, I think, so I can take this guy off. Yeah, you can see there was quite a bit of spring pressure on it, so this sucker bent. So I'll have to remember that. Woo, that was close. Oh, and there go the springs. Don't lose your springs, folks. You're gonna need those. I guess for loose. All right, we'll set that stuff aside, and I should be able to pull. Yep. Oh. I think I would have just learned my lesson, right? Nope. Of course not. All right. I think it's just the springs that let loose. All right, let me get my mess cleaned up and we'll take you over to the bench. I'll bring you right back. All right, I got this thing all disassembled. It was pretty easy. All I had to do was, once I got it over the bench here, these pins that the fingers rode through, there's just cotter pins on the ends, just pull those cotter pins out and everything came apart. And I actually went ahead and I threw these guys in the ultrasonic cleaner with some simple green and let it run for a couple hours, and they actually came out pretty clean. So now, I took some dimensions for the guy that has the similar clutch. So I did my OD and my ID right here. Did my, obviously my cross section. Showed him the width of where the fingers ride and the widths of where these blocks are. And what else? A couple other diameters and things like that. And it looks like he has the same clutch. So, nice gentleman out in Minnesota. Told him to go ahead and send it, and we'll see what happens once the new one get here, and we'll compare. So I'll bring you back once we get to that point. So stay tuned. All right, our new pressure plate has arrived. So I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is it does look to be the correct one. Everything looks the same. When I take my top plate and set it on here, all of the grooves for the fingers line up. The grooves here for the blocks line up. The bolt holes line up, so that all looks good. The other bit of good news. This was turned and ground down, and it is, there we go, it is dead nuts flat, or as flat as you're going to get, right? Compared to my other one that was cupped pretty badly, so that's good news. Now time for the bad news. Remember I mentioned that it was repaired? Well, there's the repair. I'd be lying if I said that was a great looking weld. There's some porosity in there and it looks like a bit of a crack. So that's not great. Then you look at the other side here and you can see, yeah, there's some porosity in there, but it does look like there is complete fusion on this side. So maybe okay? So that's not a good piece of news. Here's the other bad news. Notice the thickness of that plate. It is significantly thinner than my old one. So I don't know if this is actually going to work. With that plate being that thin, I don't know if I'm going to have enough movement in the clutch once I get the springs and everything there to be able to contact the clutch disc and actually get a good bite. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this thing, and we'll see where we're at. So let me assemble it and I'll bring you back. All right, I figured I better show you how to put some of this stuff back together since I didn't show you how to take it apart necessarily. So basically you've got your finger, you've got a bolt, you've got a block, you've got a spring, and you've got a pin. Okay, so the finger goes this way with the top, or the shiny part, the dome part that's seen wear, pointing up this way. This is what the thrust bearing comes in contact with. That's why it's shiny, as opposed to this side being still a casting, right? Okay, so that means well, we got to put our block on. You can see, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily matter, I don't think, but you can see the block was wearing this way against the head of the bolt, right? They go up this way, okay? So this block is rectangular, okay? When you put the block in here, you can see this way there's a little bit more slop, whereas if you turn it this way, come on, get in there, get in there, it fits a little bit more snugly, okay? So that's the way the block goes. All right, then we've got our spring. See, the spring is kind of cupped and bent. So the spring goes over the bottom of the bolt there. And also you can see there's these little notches in here. That's where the top part of the spring rides, right? So you have to, kind of a juggling act to get it up to where it needs to be. But, if I can do this on camera here. Come on. Get it just right. Let me try the other spring in case this one's worn a little bit more towards this finger. I didn't necessarily keep track of which spring went on which finger when I did this, but that's okay. All right, come on. Get it up there. It's kind of a wrestling match to get it to where it needs to be. But you got to get it close. Come on. There we go. All right, that's about where it needs to be. Right, like that. So now we have to come over here, and our pin slides through both the finger and the spring. So you have to kind of make sure you're holding it right where it needs to be. There may be an easier way of doing this. I've never disassembled one of these before, but this is just the way that I've found to do it. Okay, so I'm going to get my pin started through my finger there. Oh, we're so close. Sure, the first one went really easy off camera. That's just always how that works, right? You can do it real easy off camera, and then you got to struggle on camera. Take a little brass hammer. There we go. Tap it through. There we go. That's where it's supposed to be, and then a cotter pin goes through the hole over here. So now you can see that's how that pin is held in, right? Same thing over here. So then I'm going to go ahead and do the other one off camera, and then all you have to do is set all your springs on these notches here. There's 15 of them that go all the way around. So I'll bring you back once I got that all ready. So 1 second. All right, my springs are in place, and I put my top plate on. I was actually able to set the top plate on and pull up on the fingers, and it actually pulled the bolts, the adjusting bolts, up into the threads, and by turning it actually counterclockwise, it was able to thread in and start pulling those up. So I've pulled them all up until just until the threads are just starting to show. I don't know if you can see that or not, but down here where it's coming through the casting, so that they're all kind of even. So right now my clutch fingers are sticking up past the casting. Now remember when I took it apart, they were a 1/4 inch down below the casting, so I just need to keep working my way around and tightening these, and it's going to get harder and harder and harder because each time I turn it, it's going to put more spring pressure on here, but I'm going to keep working those around until I get my fingers back to about a 1/4 inch where I was before, so I'll bring you back once that's done, so stay tuned. All right, I got everything bolted up and back to the way it was, and I'm just, thinking this through, and I don't think this is going to work as intended, all right? So here's a picture of the exploded view. So, get the dirt off of here. Here's our pressure plate. Here's our clutch disc, right? So with the way it is now, backing up, I took some measurements. So my old clutch disc is 265 thousandths thick, and the new one is 111 thousandths thick, so that leaves me with 0.154, 154 thousandths, so more or less 5/30 seconds, right? Just a little bit under. It's basically that much, right? That much difference, right? So I've got my pressure plate, I've got my clutch disc, and I've got that much more gap to make up that I don't think the pressure plate is going to be able to make up. And you look here at now this is just a hand-drawn thing, right? So here's our fingers and here's our throwout bearing. And it shows that the finger is about actually even with this bottom surface here, right? Maybe sticking in a little bit, but there's no spec on it anywhere in the manual that I can find, so I'm not really sure what it's supposed to be. So I just put it back to where I was, which was basically a 1/4 inch, and that puts you can't really see it here, but that's a little bit less than halfway down. So I don't know that there's enough adjustment in the fingers and with everything else to be able to make up that gap. Now possibly, right, if I left the fingers come up farther, then that would allow me to still disengage with the throwout bearing, but I don't know. Because if I loosen everything up, it would allow the pressure plate to go that way farther, and in turn the fingers would go that way farther. But I don't know if there's enough there to make it up, and it would be hard. You could experiment with it in the tractor, playing with it back and forth, but you'd have to put it all back in there and experiment, and it's a big pain in the butt, right, to split a tractor. So what I may have another option. I'm going to think about this further, talk to some people, but I think what I might be able to do is get a piece of plate around 154 thousandths or something thicker, and maybe bolt or weld it to the bottom of my pressure plate here, right? So my first thought was, well, I could weld it. I could drill a bunch of holes in it and then have it spot welded, right? I mean, the clutch discs are held on with rivets, and that holds pretty good, so I could maybe spot weld that, or I could maybe drill some holes and actually bolt it on with using like a flathead bolt, like a machine screw or something like that. And I think I could drill through these here and have because that's just the springs, right? The springs just, where's my spring? Oh, the springs are in the clutch, but the springs sit on there and they go up through there. So I could have the head of the bolt on, this side with a plate, and then have the threads come up through here, and there'd be plenty of meat there for me to torque everything down and, make everything tight. So that's an option too. So I'm going to go ahead and explore my options and see what I can do, but it's still not an ideal situation. This is a very, very, very difficult part to get right. So yeah, let me explore my options, and I'll get back to you with what I decide. All right, and we're back, and I think we found our solution. So this was actually recommended to me by one of my cousins. There's a company called Fidanza Performance. I am not affiliated with them in any way, so don't take it that way. But one of their services they offer is a replaceable clutch friction plate material that gets bolted onto aluminum flywheels. Okay, So basically, you get a plate that is the same size as your flywheel, and it's got a bunch of holes in it and the bolt on. So I checked out their website. I searched and I searched and I searched, and I needed a plate that was 12 by 6.5. Okay, the closest thing they had was a plate that was 11 3/4 by 6. So I rolled the dice and I ordered it. Check it out. So how this works is if you have an aluminum flywheel, obviously your aluminum flywheel is going to wear, and so they have this. It's actually 1050 steel heat treated. That's Blanchard ground on here, and that gets bolted on there. So it's a consumable surface. So this wears, and your clutch disc wears, and you can replace this at some point, right? So I said, why wouldn't that work in this application? So I think it will. So you put it on here, and you can see it's really close, right? So this is actually slightly smaller than 12. It's like 11 and 15/16 basically is what it is. So we have just a little bit of overlap here, and it covers the whole pressure plate in the middle here. So let me go ahead and, or clutch disc, I'm sorry, in the middle here. So go ahead and lay this guy in here. I mean, look at that. Here, actually, we'll go ahead and lay it the other way around so you can see it. But, so, let's see, contact this way, right? So that's gonna go on there just perfect. It's like actually the exact same size as the outside of the clutch disc. So that's awesome. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to figure out how to bolt this bad boy on here. So now I'm not going to be able to use all the holes most likely, because the idea is, so you drill through, well, you know, a flywheel would already have the parts in it, but in my application here, I drill through and I use these little bolt heads, right, that countersink on there. So I've got to drill through my pressure plate here. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to be able to use all of them based on where all the geometry is here, but I should be able to get pretty close where I can. I'm just going to try to space them out and figure out where the best place to put all this stuff is, because I can't interfere with the fingers, can't interfere with this stuff in here. I can interfere with the spring to some extent, but I can't have any like nuts sticking up here, because that's what's supposed to go on the back here is some nuts. So potentially, if it is close to a spring, I might be able to drill and tap it through, but I'm going to just play that by ear as I go, and I can't really interfere with this area here because that's where the faceplate, you know, sits down in there using these notches here, so I can't interfere with those too much. So either way, I think I'm in good shape here, and I think I'm going to be able to make this work. Now, you know, this is, you know, it's got all these holes on here for a high-performance application for cars, you know, sports cars running, who knows, anywhere from 6,500 to 9,000 RPM. This thing maxes out at 1,100 RPM, right? And I'm most not likely not going to be running that under load. So I think this is going to work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start trying to lay this out. I'm going to disassemble the clutch all the way again, you know, pull off the fingers, and try to see if I can lay out the best place to do my holes. And I'll bring you back with what I decided here. But I'm actually feeling really good about this. So, oh yeah, the other thing too, forgot to mention. So if you remember on my piece of paper here, right, my old clutch disc, or my old pressure plate was basically a little over a 1/4 inch, 256 thousandths. My new one is 111 thousandths, so that leaves me 154 inches that I needed to take up. Check this out. Whoop. Come on. It's real close. It's real close, guys. So I think this is going to work just fine. It's the fact that it's a little thicker I actually like, because there may have been a little wear on my old one. And, you know, we were running out of space here with our pressure plates. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and try to lay this out here and see what's going on. So I'll bring you back. One more thing I forgot to mention, since it's been a couple weeks, but my pressure plate, or my clutch disc, came back from the rebuilder with the fresh linings on there. So I measured those out. They all look real good. We had to double check that this is going to work with an oil application, but it does. A little bit of a bickering thing going on with the guy who rebuilt it, because he claimed that there's no way this is an oil clutch application because it has more than, all those have more than one disc. Well, yeah, that's probably true for modern equipment, but this is from 1942, so this had one disc. I have the manual to prove it, and I had to try to convince the guy that this is actually an oil clutch, but he still was skeptical. But you know it is. Anyways, so that all came back. That all looks good. So once I get this thing back on here, I just have to find time to put the tractor back together. So let's go ahead and get this going, and I'll bring you back. All right, gents, I think this is going to be my best configuration. So I've played with the hole pattern and trying to get it to align with different things on the bottom there, and there's no real good way to do it. But what I did just discover is the screw is not really long enough once embedded to be able to get a nut on there secure. So I think what I'm going to have to do is drill the holes through and then tap them and then put some blue Loctite on there for everything to hold it in place. I think that's going to be my best bet. So based on that, this configuration I have here seems to be have the least interference with things on there. So I'm going to go ahead and I already marked out my holes. I measured my ends in 4 places to make sure I was as centered as I could be. I went ahead and I took a centering punch and I dimpled some holes right here. I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the drill press and drill this out, and then secure those in, and then it'll give me a pattern in order to do the rest of them all the way around here, right? So first thing I need to do is make sure that I have the proper tap for this size screw, and I don't know what size screw this is. So from playing around, it feels like it's a 3/8 inch head. So I went ahead and here, let me put you on the tripod and I'll show you what I did here. All right, so basically what I did here is I took my screw, used my caliper, whoop, come on, turn on, make sure we're zeroed, and I figured out what my diameter was here. So it's telling me I'm basically 3/16 of an inch, a little bit lighter than that, 3/16 of an inch. Okay, so now let's see what our thread pitch is, or number of threads per inch is. So taking my thread gauge here, I figured out that I am, come on, focus, 32 threads per inch. Okay, so I went in my tap set and looked for something that was around, 3/16, and I found this. So it is I don't know if you can see that or not, but it says, there it is, you can kind of see it. Come on, focus. There you go, 1032. 1032, I'm going to take my caliper. It's basically around 3/16 of an inch. Okay. So looking up that number, for a tap drill size, it says I need to use a number 21, which is 159 thousandths. So I grabbed a drill, went ahead, grabbed a number 21 drill, or 159 thousandths, or I guess that's the same as a 5/32. I went ahead and I drilled a test hole, whoops, in a piece of aluminum that I had around here. Drilled it out, tapped it, and come on, try to thread in one of these, and that actually feels really good. So I think that is what I'm going to do. All right, it's able to secure down nice and tightly. Okay, so we'll go ahead and unscrew that. Once I get this unscrewed, we'll go back over, and now I'll take my plate over to the drill press, put in my, so like I said, I already dimpled some holes here. I got one there and one there for where I'm going to drill my holes. I'm going to go over to the drill press with this bit. I'm going to drill those out, and I'm going to bolt on my pressure plate there. Or yeah, I guess pressure plate is what it technically is. So I'll go ahead and bring you back once I'm done with that. So stay tuned. Well, I have good news and I have bad news. Good news is everything seemed to work as planned, and I think I'm only going to have to trim 3 bolts. Bad news is my tap broke on the very last hole. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get it out of there or not, but that may not matter because I've got all the rest of them on there. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Flip it over to the other side. You'll see what I'm talking about. So you see the bolts don't come all the way through, so I can't put nuts in there, but I think that's fine. I'll probably have to trim this one, maybe that one, and this one for sure, just to shorten them up. Maybe that one too. But all the rest of them should be fine. They're not going to interfere with anything. Really, this is just hollow space here. The springs sit on here. You can see Like this one's probably the closest one. Yeah, the spring kind of touches it a little bit, but I mean, it's not sticking out anywhere. It's not even sticking out past the top of this feature here of that little star pattern there. But I think we're in good shape. What I am going to do, though, is go and get some Loctite. I think I'm going to use some blue thread locker. That way I can remove this if I need to at some point. But it'll give me peace of mind since there's no nut on the back and no lock washer or anything that they're going to stay in there. But so, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get some blue thread locker. I'm going to trim up a couple of these bolts, and then this thing will be good to go. So I'll bring you back once that is complete. So stay tuned. All right, folks, I've got my new plate pulled off here, and I'm going to make an attempt at getting this broken tap out. Now, don't know if I'm going to be successful or not. I've tried picking at it, trying to get it to move and this and that, and I got it to budge a little bit, but it's pretty bound up in there. So I went and I got some Dremel attachments here. So I've got this one. It's a tungsten carbide cutter. So I'm going to work at it with that for a little bit. I also got a couple different grinding tips down here too. So I'm just going to take my Dremel and try to work at it and see if I can't get that thing busted up and, you know, whittled down and maybe get it to move down there. So I'm going to work at that for a little while, and then I'll bring you back. Also, I did label where my holes were so I can get everything to line up exactly the way I had it before. But I'm going to go ahead and work on that, and then I'll let you know the results, so stay tuned. All right, status update. They are all able to remove material. I started off, like I said, with that tungsten thing, and it was able to remove material, but it was very fine, very slight, and it was hard to control. I then switched to this one, which is supposed to be for sharpening chainsaw blades. Focus. But it's a pretty fine stone, and I was just kind of plunging straight down with it, and it was actually working. So then I decided to try this other stone here, which is a little bit more of a coarse stone, and that one's actually making the best progress. So let's see, I can't really tell the depth there. Maybe an 1/8 inch down that way, and I did flip it over, and I plunged in on the other side, and I'm getting there. So I think I'm just about there. I got maybe an 1/8 inch more to go, something like that, but we'll see. So I am making progress. I don't know what's going to be left of that hole when I get it out there. I may have to try to get a larger screw in there or something like that, but we'll see what happens. So I'll bring you back as I progress, so stay tuned. Well, the good news is I got it out. Bad news is I think I widened the hole too much to run a tap through, but we're going to try to see if we can't clean it up and see what happens here. So let me get as much I can out of there with a pick and clean it up, and then we'll try to run a tap through there again and see what happens. So stay tuned and I'll bring you back. Well, I did get the tap to bite, and I went all the way through, so let's go ahead and get this bad boy unscrewed, and we'll see if we can't put one of our machine screws in there. Come on. All right, let's try one of our screws here. Actually, let me blow it out a little bit. Get any chips out of there. Okay. Now let's see if it'll take a screw. Huh! We got threads! Look at that! It's gonna work! Now I'm gonna be careful on that one not to over tighten it, but I think we're gonna be in good shape here, fellers. Alright, so just as a roundup here, let me clean up my mess a little bit. What I wound up doing is I kind of alternated between, I last left you, I was working with this guy. So then I had a pretty flat bottom go, and then I brought this guy out there, and I just kind of plunged in and like broke it up, and it started pulling out big chunks of the tap there. I think what was happening was I was hitting like the gaps, if I can show you here, like the gaps like that in the flutes. I think it was hitting that and like breaking off big chunks. Once it stopped breaking off big chunks, I came back and I hit it with this again to flatten it out. Then I hit it one more time with this thing, and then I was like getting too deep for this, so I just took this punch and popped it down a couple times, and this popped right out. So yeah, it worked. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and clean this whole thing up with brake clean to get all this penetrant and stuff off here that I've been using as I've been drilling and tapping holes and cutting and all that, and then I'm going to work to get this thing bolted back on. I'm going to look to see which ones I need to trim and which ones I don't. The ones that I don't need to trim, I'm going to go ahead and I got some blue thread locker. I'm going to use that to lock those on there permanently. So I'm going to go ahead and do that quick, and then I'll bring you back. So stay tuned. All right, so we've started the assembly process, and I mentioned there's a couple of these that I needed to trim once they were through, so I just tested it out on one of these on the side over here, and I've got that screwed all the way through. And I took my Dremel tool, actually, with a grinding bit on there, and I just ground it down flush, and I'm still able to get that screwed out. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put my blue Loctite on every single one of these and run them through tight, and then I'll show you how I'm going to trim those as we are getting ready to finish this up here. So stay tuned. Okay, everything is bolted on and Loctited. Now it's time to flip it over and trim up the ones that we need to trim up. So let's see. Let's start with one that you can see. We'll just go ahead and do this one right here since you can see that, right? So really all I'm going to do is take my Dremel tool, and I'm all tangled up on the tripod here. Let me fix that quick. All right. Take my Dremel tool. Here, maybe I can do one that'll be easier for you to see. How about that one right there? Okay, so we're going to take our Dremel tool with a grinding stone. We're just going to reach in here and grind her down until she's flat. So I'll go ahead and do that here quick on camera so you can see how I'm doing this, and then, yeah, we'll talk about the after effects. And there we go. We're ground smooth. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that on, let's see, this one, and that one I think are the only ones I'm going to need to do. So I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and then we'll come back and see what we're going to do next. All right, I think we're all good to go. I've got those all ground down so that they're not touching anything. So now I think it's time to reassemble. So I'm going to go ahead and reassemble just like you saw me do earlier, except for one exception. The manual says you can get some 3/8 inch by 2 1/4 bolts that actually screw into these holes here, and they push through the, let's see, it's the middle hole on the faceplate, and it helps compress the springs for when you're putting this all together. When you're setting your fingers and everything else like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that this time. Once I get my fingers back on, my springs back on, set that on, and see if I can't compress it down using these to help out and make it a little bit easier to set my finger height. So I'll show you that process once we get to it. So for now, let me get this all put back together, and then I'll bring you back. So stay tuned. So I just noticed something as I was reassembling this here. So remember earlier I was talking about part numbers, and there's multiple for these pressure plates. The case part number is A4792A, and I mentioned the Borg-Warner part number was this, CL3707. So this is, I believe, I don't think this is an original pressure plate. I believe this was a replacement one from Borg-Warner. Now, I took my pressure plate that I had, and I scratched off, and I found where the part number was on there, and it also has the matching part number. So this may not even be an original pressure plate that came with that tractor. Who knows? But yeah, this is one of the replacement part numbers, not the original case part number. So, so it looks like someone has been in there and maybe done this job before. So who knows? This thing, is from 1942, so it's decades old. But just found that kind of interesting as I was going through this. But that does mean I do indeed have the correct part number. I think I pretty much already verified that by putting it all together, but here's further confirmation that we have matching part numbers here. So just something interesting I found. All right, we'll get back to the assembly process, so stay tuned. All right, everything's back together. Fingers are in, springs are in, plates on where it's supposed to be, and I've got these bolts started. Now, the manual said you're supposed to have 2 1/4 by 3/8 inch bolts. These are 2 1/2. I could not find 2 1/4 in any of the stores, but I've got my fingers started, and we're going to torque this down and just see what it does. I may wind up having to shorten these up, but we'll just see what happens. Oh yeah, Okay, well, you definitely saw it push down on the finger, so now let's see if that makes it any easier to adjust our fingers. Oh, it certainly does. Look at that. Takes the spring load off of them. That's awesome. Wish I would have known that the other day. Guess it pays to read the manual a little bit more, doesn't it? And this is supposed to aid you in reinstalling this back in the tractor too. So by compressing these bolts, it compresses the springs and it moves. So well, here, let me flip it up and show you. So this will be in contact with the clutch disc and the flywheel in there, right? So it'll be pushed out like this, okay? By compressing this down, it squeezes it down so that I can then rebolt it to the flywheel using this, if that makes any sense. But once we get to that point, I'll explain that further and show you how that works. But for now, I'm going to work on adjusting these fingers and see if I need to shorten these bolts up any. So let me bring you back if I run into any issues, so stay tuned. Okay, those bolts make a world of difference in getting my fingers set properly. It's almost effortless to turn those to get those set properly. All right, so I've got those set to 1/4 inch. That's where it was when I started. So that's where we're gonna go. I'm going ahead now and I'm putting on my lock nuts here, right? So to lock these up here, I'll show you on the one that's closest to you. Basically, you hold it with your flathead right where you want it. This is a 5/8 inch wrench, and you go ahead and you tighten them up. So now if I were to just turn this with my wrench, that would turn, it would mess up my finger adjustment there. So that's why I'm going ahead and holding this like this. Just like setting valve lash and, you know, things like that. Okay. Go ahead over here on this one. I already did the first one, so we're good there. Okay, that's all set. So now, basically, our clutch is ready to get put back in the tractor, so now I just need to find time to go up there and do that. Tractor's currently about 1.5 hours away from me right now, so I wish I could do it right now, but I can't. So yeah, I will bring you guys back when we are ready to put the tractor back together, so stay tuned. All right, fast forward a couple months. It is now April. Time to get to work. All right, actually, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start the engine oil draining out because this oil is decades old, and you can see the color of that oil that was in the clutch housing area. If the rest of it looks like that, I know this needs to be changed. It was paper thin, black, really old. So, excuse me, here's our oil pan right here, and there's a pipe plug right there. So I'm going to go ahead, hopefully I can do it on camera, get her loosened up here. Hopefully it comes loose easily enough. Man, it's got a layer of crud caked on it. Sorry, you guys can't see. Oh, okay, I'm gonna have to use 2 hands for this. 1 second. All right, we managed to get her loose here. Let's see if we can't work it out. See what that oil looks like. Hopefully this catch man's big enough, but I think it only holds about 2 gallons. So let's see. There we go. Oh yeah, she black. Black is nice as spades. All right, we're gonna let that drain out. Make sure our pan's in the middle there. All right, now we're gonna hop over to the other side of the tractor and we're gonna take a peek inside. 1 second. All right, hopefully you can see this here, but we're inside the flywheel housing and there's a channel that runs all the way around here. You can see I've kind of already scraped some of this off, but this area allows oil to flow around the clutch in here, and there are drain holes. Oh, where are we here? Right here that drain back, drain down and back, and that gets all packed full of crud from years and years and years of clutch wear. So that's like all old clutch material that gets packed in there. Doesn't allow the oil to flow around properly and drain properly and all that sort of thing. So that also is what I'm told helps aid in causing premature clutch wear. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that stuff cleaned out with a scraper and whatever else I can to get this as clean as possible in here before we start reassembly here. So let me go ahead and do that, and we'll bring you back once we get to that point. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. I wound up pulling off the flywheel because it was really hard to get to. I did manage to get most of this stuff loose, but it was hard to get it clean. And here, these holes right here do go all the way through, and they're packed full of crud. I couldn't get them to go all the way through, so I'm gonna have to take some stuff and really poke those out, clean out the crud on the back here, get all of these holes here all cleaned, and get those passages cleaned up. So I'm going to give this thing a really good cleaning, and then I'll bring you back once we get to that point, so stay tuned. Alright guys, we are about as clean as we're going to get it, and it is significantly better. I wound up having to take a hammer and pounding it through each one of these holes to get that built up crud out of there. I mean, you can see all this crud on the ground here. This is only a portion of it, but it's like tar in there. That is all old clutch material and old oil and everything else, all bound together. So we've got everything as clean as possible. All right, so now we're going to throw that flywheel back on and start the reassembly process. So thing's kind of heavy. It'll be easier with two people. I only have me right now, so what I'm going to do is set it up on a jack to get it up as high as I can and lift it into place there and get her snug back down. So I'll bring you back once it's time to start putting things back together. All right, so stay tuned. All right, guys, flywheel is back in place where it should be. That was quite the wrestling match being by myself. So what I wound up doing was taking that floor jack and setting it on that plate, lifting up into place and still having to wrestle it in there between using a pry bar and my hands and smashing my fingers and all that. So that was a fun time. But we got it back where it needs to be. Next thing we're going to do here is we're going to prep our gasket surface here, right? Get all the old gasket off of here and off of this side because I did get a new case gasket, so we're going to get that in place. Now, once I get that clean, I'm then going to have to get this leveled out here and set so I can slide my lifting pins out on each side to get my gasket in place, because the pins have to go through the gasket, right? So kind of a goofy design that way, but that's what needs to be done there. So we're going to go ahead and get that all cleaned up and ready, and then we'll start putting our clutch back together. So give me a moment and I'll bring you back. All right, gasket surfaces are cleaned up, gasket in place. I've got it leveled off so I could slide my rod in and out. I did, on the back side of that gasket, I did put some dabs of grease all the way around to help it stick in place where I want it to go, but we should be pretty good. I got all the holes lined up. All right, now it's time to actually put the clutch back up in place, but I can't put it all the way on because it's going to be hard to see there, but we've got our output shaft, and we've got, you know, there's splines on there, there's splines on that, right? So I can't put the clutch all the way in place and bolt it on because I won't be able to get the splines lined up, you know, with the tractor together with my hands in there. So I basically have to take the clutch, the pressure plate, and push it as far as I can this way towards the throwout bearing, and then get my clutch disc on there in place, and then slowly work it together. And it's going to be kind of a juggling match to get the pressure plate up where it needs to be and get my clutch disc, keep it on the splines there, and then get, you know, the tip of my output shaft inside the bearing in there, the pilot bearing in there, right? So it's going to be a little bit of a juggling match, but that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to try to get that set up, and then probably not going to be able to show you. There's too much debris and stuff in the way here from this stupid loader, but that's what we're going to attempt here. So I'll show you as we make some progress. All right, well, that wasn't too bad. I just basically had to lift up with one hand through here and reach through my inspection hatch over here with the other to pull up the pressure plate itself, and then excuse me, the clutch disc slid right in place. So I got it forward. It's gonna be hard to see here. Let me grab some light for you here. I've got the throwout bearing, come on, there we go, and the carrier, the housing, as far back to the right in the picture there as possible. And then that allowed me to move the clutch all the way back that far and still have some room here. So I think we're going to be in good shape here. So now it is time to start pushing everything together. I'm going to have to watch out for that up there. Where we go? That's like a support bracket for the gas tank. That's going to kind of get in the way, but as I get the tractor closer, I can lift it up and get it over that flange there on the right side there. So we're going to start working this together and then bring you back if I run into any issues, so stay tuned. All right, guys, here's what we got going on here. It's getting closer. She's moving. So the method I've employed, I have a ratchet strap. One on the beam there for the steering, one on that shaft right there for the brakes, right? I got another one over here on this side, doing the same thing. So what I'm doing here is a couple clicks, 2 clicks, go to the other side, two clicks, and I'm slowly inching it forward. I tried just rolling the back side so installing the back wheels was a pain in the butt because I'd have to go to this side of the tire, roll it a little bit, go to the other side, and I wanted to roll back because it's been sitting all winter. These tires have fluid in them. It wants to roll back, so I have to like try to roll it and kick a board under it. This has been a lot easier, right? So since I'm a one-arm paper hanger here today, you got to work with what you got, and I got me, and I got 2 ratchet straps, so this is working. So I'm going to keep working it until I get her back together, and then bring you back for the next step. Whew, sorry I'm out of breath here, but bring you back for the next step. All right, I've got both sides of my bell housing bolted together, and I have all of my 1/2-inch bolts for my clutch bolted in. So that should all be as it is. The engine turns freely when I pull on the clutch, so that's all good. Now it's time to set the clutch depth. So remember, I have those, you can kind of see it there, whoop, those 3 grade 8 bolts in there, compressing, come on, focus, compressing the clutch, so I'm kind of highlighting it right there. I got to take those out, and that'll let the clutch push in and actually engage the clutch disc in there. And now we've got to set our depth for our throwout bearing with our foot pedal there. So let me get set up and we'll get that taken care of, so stay tuned. All right, it's gonna be hard for you to see this, so I'll just kind of show you from up top, but I've got the clutch pedal adjusted, so I've got about 1 inch of free play, right? I got about 1 inch before the throwout bearing moves and contacts the fingers in there, right? So we're set right there, and then inside there, I've got about an 1/8 inch gap between the fingers on the clutch and the throwout bearing when we are in disengaged position. So everything feels fluid in there, so that feels like it's good. So now we just got to start reassembling everything here, right? So I'm not going to show you each step because it's just a giant mishmash of things. So I'm just going to try to knock this out. I'm going to start by trying to get the loader reattached and then just kind of work my way back, and we'll see where we get to. So 1 second. All right, we got everything back together. So we're going to go ahead and try to do a test fire and see what happens. My choke cable got messed up when I was putting it back together, so I'm going to have to choke it from the side, but we are in neutral. Key on, fuel on. Here we go. It was here I realized I had a problem. The clutch was engaging, but I couldn't get it to disengage by pushing in the foot pedal. I tried and I tried and I tried, and I just wasn't getting any movement. So I had to investigate. I tried adjusting the handbrake, and that was adjusted to where it was supposed to be. I also tried readjusting my foot brake, and I determined that that was where it needed to be. So I decided to take a closer look at the clutch itself. Now, once I inspected the clutch itself, I realized that the fingers were actually too far away from the throwout bearing. So now remember, I said that there was no spec for how to set up the fingers once you've had this apart, because it supposedly came from the factory and you're supposed to have a technician do it. So I searched all the manuals, I searched online, and I couldn't find the correct answer. So what I wound up doing was looking right here as closely as I could where the fingers were in relation to the throwout bearing. And I went up here to the lock nut on all 3 fingers and loosened the lock nut, and then unscrewed each of the fingers so that they shifted out towards the throwout bearing. I unscrewed them until they touched and then put them back in just so that they were about an 1/8 inch away. I did that on all 3, and I kept moving the foot pedal to push the throwout bearing towards the fingers to make sure that they're all engaging at the same time. So it looked like everything was working correctly, so we gave her one more shot. All right, everything's back together. We already did do a test fire to make sure she starts up what she does. Now we're gonna see if that clutch operates, so we'll see what happens. Fuel, please. Forgot to turn the fuel on, but I have an assistant. All right, here we go. right, folks, I think that'll do it for this video. We accomplished our goal, though. We got that tractor split, got the new clutch in, and got it pulling as it should. Now we run out of clutch before we run out of engine, so we have some things to address. So in future videos, we're going to take a look at getting that engine running a little bit better. We're going to do some compression testing. We're going to check out the valves, make sure that they're operating properly, probably adjust the valves, and we're going to address that exhaust leak. So hopefully you like this video. Please like and subscribe to keep this sort of thing going, and we'll see you for the next one.